Hey y'all, it's Mama's Vocalocity back again. Talk a little bit about Chadwick Boseman, who passed away this past Friday. And in honor of him, I want to talk about some of the struggles that I have had with raising a young African American man. So first off, it was probably Friday night, and my daughter was finishing up something on her computer. I think she was going to type up a paper, and I brought her laptop and opened it up, and I remember seeing Chadwick Boseman's picture, and of course like an article or whatever, but I didn't pay that much attention. Not even 5 minutes later, my best friend came home and she walks in the door and she's like, "Letitia!" And she tells me that he has passed away. And it was one of those moments where you would never even imagine that situation happening, first off. But even if you did think about it, you would not expect yourself to respond that way. So, I mean, I'm a pretty sensitive person. So when she told me, the shock of it really like knocked me aback. I walked over to the curtains and I'm just thinking, this doesn't make sense. What do you mean he's passed away from colon cancer? Like, I didn't know he had colon cancer. I didn't know he was sick. And so I went over to the curtains and I got inside of them and stood behind them so you could only see my feet. And I began to weep. And for the rest of the night, me and my best friend just kind of talked about it and just really felt it. And of course, as the night progressed and eventually I went to bed, I started looking up different videos on him and different interviews by him. And, you know, I didn't know a ton about him. The biggest thing that I knew about him was that he was Black Panther. And for a chick like me who is not into action movies or superhero movies or anything like that, that movie, Black Panther, was a huge deal to me. And a huge deal to most of the world, especially the Black community. And going to see the movie was like, I have to go see it. Everybody's talking about it. There's this Black superhero, right? But then going to the theater and watching it on the big screen and seeing the vivacious colors and the beautiful garments and materials that the characters wore, and the music, oh my goodness, the music and the language and just everything about it. I just remember sitting there thinking, what? Like, I've never seen anything like this before, especially not in a hero movie, a superhero movie. And I just remember how beautiful it was and how proud I was that that movie I could relate to in such a marvelous way. I have been to Africa twice. I've been to Nigeria with my ex-husband, because that is where he's from. And then a couple years ago, I went on a missions trip to Kenya. And I went with my worship band from my church. And we got to lead worship and meet other musicians and go to this amazing conference in Kenya, um, Nairobi, Kenya, that is. And so, even going to Nairobi, Kenya, and just hearing about how incredible of a celebration it was when Black Panther came out, especially in that area. Um, it was just like, wow. Like, what an amazing time to be alive and experience this, see this become history. So I always I always felt and believed, based on interviews that I saw of him and just him in general, like his presence, you could tell he was very kind. He was very sensitive. He was very generous, very giving. Um, he seemed to have a very solid mind and to know what he wanted and what he believed. And just very genuine all around. But then to hear that while he was fighting this disease and having surgeries and chemotherapy, that he made 7 movies. And I can imagine, I don't know, but I can imagine that as his career was unfolding and exploding, that he wanted to keep going. And maybe the doctors told him he wouldn't survive. Maybe he knew that. Maybe he didn't want the movie world, Hollywood, to treat him any differently because of his disease. I mean, I'm going through something, man. I'm telling my worship team that Sunday, could you guys pray for me? The other thing I always remember is when he was on Saturday Night Live. And he was on Black Jeopardy. And he's answering questions, but he's answering them like so finally at the end he answers this question, and it's about a white woman bringing potato salad or something like that to a picnic. And he's like, I think I finally get it. Like, he says, oh, hell no, Karen, or something like that. Like, you cannot bring your potato salad here, and you're probably going to put something in there like raisins or... So, but just to hear that he accomplished so much even after his diagnosis in, I think it was 2016, in 4 years, how much he accomplished. I am a pretty healthy woman. I'm also in my early 40s. And if he can work long hours memorizing scripts and learning, about different heroes like Jackie Robinson, if he can do all of that and learning the tongue that he used for Black Panther, like if he can put that time in while he's essentially dying, how much more can I? In honor of him, I wanted to kind of touch on what it's like, or what it has been like, raising a young Black man. So I have a 14-year-old son. He started the 9th grade, and he has had a lot of struggles. Before I get into all that, he is extremely smart, extremely funny. I mean, he's like the cool kid. He can be extremely quiet. He can definitely keep to himself. He's very much an introvert. And one of the things that he picked up when he was probably, I don't know, around 6, 7, or 8 was basketball. Before my father passed away last year, while my son was growing up, he started playing basketball with him. So, all that to say, he's a pretty amazing kid. He does very well in school, but he has definitely struggled the past 3 years. Starting when he was about 12, 11, 12. And it was why I took him out of school and started homeschooling him. He was struggling emotionally and he was not doing well in school. So I decided to homeschool. And man, that first year was really, really hard. I really, really, truly believe that the homeschooling has helped him emotionally. It's allowed for us to have conversations when things are really difficult and tough. I remember that first year he would be struggling. He didn't want to do anything. And so I would send him outside to play basketball. And he would shoot some hoops and he would come back in a different child. He would come back in and say, "The Lord told me that I really need to work on my behavior." I mean, it was incredible. But my son has definitely struggled emotionally. A lot of it has to do with his parents being divorced. And then a lot of it has to do with his relationship with his dad. You know, his dad really, at this point, is not capable of having really good, solid relationships with people. And my son has really longed for that, and he sees how his other friends' fathers are, and he doesn't understand why it's not that way. But he's also come to a place of really having an understanding of who his dad is. And I've always encouraged my kids that they need to respect their dad, but they also need to accept him for who he is. Like, I love the phrase, when a person tells you who they are, believe them. I've really tried to help my son just have the best relationship he can with his dad. And very recently, he's been talking about going to live with his dad. And I just want to pause and say to all single moms, it's gonna happen. And my son started talking about it again. And I would say, you know what? You need to go and live with your dad. If that's what you want to do, I think that's a good thing. But don't have really high expectations. You know, your dad is who he is. And he understood that. But anyway, he asked again to live with his dad. And then all of a sudden, he was gone. And it was hard. It took me a few days to really internalize that my son was gone. And fast forward 2 weeks later, and I'm like, how is he doing? I don't know how he's doing, you know? Someone like my ex-husband, they don't communicate anything. I had to really pray and ask God for peace, because I really wanted to have a conversation with his dad and talk about how frustrated I was and how I didn't understand why you guys weren't telling me what's going, like all of that. And the Holy Spirit was like, why? Why are you going to do that? You think you're going to get from him what you need? Because you probably won't. And you just end up more frustrated and more hurt. So I prayed and I let it go. And a couple days later, my son came over and we had lunch together. And I just talked to him to find out how he was doing. And he just said things were fine. And I just realized my Wonder Woman pillow is upside down. Wonder Woman! But yeah, he said things were fine. And so we talked a little bit more. And then he said, can I come home? And of course I wanted him to divulge to me why he wanted to come home. I wasn't just going to be like, yes, my son, please come home. I've been wanting you to come home. I was like, well, why? What's going on? And he just plainly said, I've just been watching my dad's behavior, and I don't think that I should be around that all the time because I don't want to learn that behavior. It's been interesting because that time away gave him a lot of perspective, and I think he's more grateful for his mom and living here, even though I have a lot of rules that he has to follow. He doesn't have as much freedom as he has at his dad's house. But he just gained such an appreciation. He came to an understanding about continuing basketball and playing drums. All that to say, I hope that this video encourages a single mom out there who is struggling with raising their son, not having their father around. Maybe their father isn't around at all, or maybe his father being around makes things worse. I'm so sorry, my nails. Every time I do a video, they're a mess. Oh my gosh. So I just want to encourage any single mom out there, or even a single father, know what's to come. Just kind of have an idea that your kids have to make choices for themselves, and they have to see things for themselves. And the less that you talk and the less that you kind of let them go, the more they can see that. One of the things that I had to implement in my son's life is therapy. He's been going to therapy since last year, and boy, has that made a difference. Just overall, let your kids experience what they need to experience, and trust that everything that you've instilled in them up until this point, or whatever it is that you're facing, that they're going to return to that. Now, I just kind of come to a place of, my children are not mine. They're not. They don't belong to me. They belong to God. And He's going to have to fill in the gap, because I can only do so much, right? Anyways, I pray that this video leaves you feeling blessed, especially encouraging single moms out there. We're giving it our all. And don't forget that your kids, they're going to be okay. If you're loving them and taking care of them and praying for them, they'll be all right. So really quick, my website is coming probably in the next month or two. I have changed the name of my Facebook page, which is Letitia Iona. So please go over and check it out. There are some really cool videos on there and words of inspiration. So anyways, be blessed, and I will see you in the next video. Bye.